Hi, and welcome back to the Spirit Lounge. I hope you are all doing very well, and to the continuation of the Upanisads. And we're going to be talking about the Prasna Upanisad today, which is a lot shorter than the last one, so we should be able to get through this fairly quickly. It's fairly short, so let me just, without further ado, just bring that onto the screen now, and we'll walk through this. So the Prasna Upanisad. Again, the Upanisads are the more esoteric mystical writings that followed the four Vedas, and the writings within the Upanisads actually linked to each one of those Upanisads within the overall Upanisads are linked to one of these Vedas, the Rig, Sama, Yajur, or Atharva, depending on what association it has. If it's got ritual, if it has practice, if it has chanting, depending on what it is, it sometimes has relevance to one or more of those. It's an ancient one from 1200 to 400 BC, written by ascetic sages, seers who went away into silent meditation, away from the world, and collected their thoughts and what was perceived by them, what was coming to them, or from revealing from within actually is the truth. And as it expands out, we think it's coming from external, but it's actually coming from internal. The way it's written is very old. The way it's written in stories, in the way it associates every aspect of the physical, including the human physical, with aspects of divine channel. So it's and the stories are associated and are relevant and are kind of you can map those to the time. If you read the Bible or even the Nag Hammadi, which are the series I did prior to this, you'll see a distinct difference in the way things are written, the way things are narrated, and the way messages are passed on. This is a very old text, and when we remind ourselves of that, you understand why it's written the way it is. So, just going into it, the Upanisads belongs to the Atharva Veda. There are 6 sections, and it's basically a question, 6 questions put to a sage by his disciples. The disciples are various sons of various people out in society who have then gone to live with this sage and asked him 6 questions. The sage is a well-known sage from the time when this was written, 1200 to 400 BC. Okay, so the invocation is the first start of this chapter, and it's an invocation. It's a prayer. It's an invocation. Is like a prayer, and it starts with, "Om, may we, O gods, what is auspicious with our ears, O ye who are worthy of our worship. May we see with our eyes what is auspicious. May we enjoy the life allotted to us by the gods." So we actually allot our own lives. This is my own comment here. And we also allot our own path. We actually devise this ourselves. It's not granted to us. We devise it ourselves for the journey and the path that we're trying to achieve throughout all these incarnative lives. In this philosophy of the past, of the 1200 to 400 BC, it suggests that everything is fateful, and that God, that the divine itself has allotted our entry, allotted our path. There's not much we can do about it, but that's not necessarily the case. Praise our bodies, praise our bodies are strong of limb. May Indra of glory bestow prosperity on us. May Pusan, the knower of all, bestow prosperity. May Taksya of unobstructed path bestow prosperity. May Bharaspati deity bestow prosperity on us. Om, peace, peace, peace. So they're basically invoking deities that were created to associate with certain aspects of the physical universe, of the physical and etheric earth plane, i.e. the weather, the wind, the fire, the rain, the sun, the moon, and aspects of ourselves, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the mouth, and so forth. And you'll see this come up. And so the first question, 6 questions seek Brahma knowledge from a teacher. And devoted to Brahman in an intent on Brahman. Seeking highest Brahman, approached the Reverend Pipalada. Now Pipalada was a Vedic sage and philosopher of the time. He actually was a real person. Some of the stories in the Upanisads, you can't tell whether they're actually stories created to pass on a message or a teaching, and so the stories wrapped around this teaching to help us understand, oh, it's a real person. We're just going to have to assume this is a real event, a real series of questions to what is a real Vedic philosopher called Pipalada. He would explain all to them. The seer said, live with me another year with austerity, chastity and faith, and then ask your questions. So he's asking them to live with him and prove their worthiness in some ways by being austere, by having chastity and having faith, i.e. practicing that they're serious about what they seek, in other words. So that's what this is indicating. So therefore the teacher then understands that they are really seeking, because they've done this for a year, and therefore he will impart their knowing unto them. Okay, question concerning the source of creatures on earth. Sir, whence are all these creatures born? And he's talking about, so they're basically saying this, our question is, in other words, where does all form come from? Where does creation come from? Where are creatures come from? Where do the animals come from? Where do we come from? Where does all this material matter form originate? And so the Lord of creation created matter and life is the heading of the response. So he says, the seer is saying, Prajapati, who is the deity for the Lord of creation, was desirous of offspring, performed austerity. He produced the pair, matter and life, thinking they would produce creatures. So they're saying that the deity produced with austerity and produced matter and life, thinking they would produce creatures. Well, actually, universal law is the underpinning principle of all creation, and that's the creation, preservation, and destruction forces, and that's also combining with energy and thought, intention, and free will. Everything that exists within the universe has a consciousness of itself, is aware of itself, is thinking within its capacity and purpose, and its intention within its capacity and purpose and thought and free will. But it has obviously a limit to what that is within its capacity of its object, of its form, of its structure, that is the consciousness or the divine spark within it is encompassed within. We are encompassed in an open, highly evolving, thinking body of human. So therefore we express and able to converse and manifest greater realms of possibility and probability. And that's what this is basically saying, is that matter and life, thinking they would produce all creatures. So matter and life, well, that is a manifestation, actually an outcome of energy, the manifestation of energy, transmuting it into matter through thought and free will and intention. And then those laws are creation, preservation, and destruction, which govern all things. And within the Vedic principles in Hinduism, there are deities for these things, and particularly creation, preservation, and destruction. Okay, the sun identified with life, and it goes on to say, sun is life, matter is the moon. Matter is all this. It is formed and it is also formless. So in other words, matter and life interact and produce the whole of creation. That is my comment here. Gross and subtle is matter. It's a cosmic process. This was a cosmic process I was describing earlier. Creation, preservation, destruction. Underlying principles of all that is energy, intention, and thought, and free will. We manifest all things through what? Directing energy through our thoughts and intentions and the free will we have underpinning those. And the universe does the same thing with the overlying creation, preservation, and destruction forces, which we also have in our own lives. As above, so below. The principles are all very simple and the same. Okay, the sun, after rising on the eastern side, rising sun, rays upon all life. It illuminates all the sides of the south, west, and the north. It illuminates rays all over all living beings. Vaisvanara, which is another word for the soul, or the Atman, the universal self. Fire, assuming every form. So this is the universal self within every form. The fire of manifestation is the universal self. It's because that is what directs manifestation. Who has all the forms? The golden one. Hiranyagarbha, also known as the golden gem. The golden one refers to divine grace also. So this passage also refers to the divine grace as being the one who has all forms. But also the Hiranyagarbha is an abstraction of the divine grace, in that the Hiranyagarbha was the source of all, was the deity of all manifestation of the universe. All-knowing and goal of all, existing in 100 forms, rises the sun, the life of all creation. Notice the sun here. The sun is the giver of life. Its rays are the giver of life. It was also associated in some old mythologies that Jesus was really the sun. They were talking about the sun, the sun rising from the dead. It was talking about the sun in its cycle. Some say that Jesus was the story of Jesus was really the sun. I don't believe that at all, but that is, I don't even feel that actually, never mind believe it. It's just a lot of mythology, ancient Sumerian mythology particularly of those times were associated with Jesus. So that's the real reality of it for me. Okay, and when it continues, the year is identified with the Lord of creation, the two roots. So the commentary continues about how creatures are born. So first we talked about is the governing matter, the governing forces. Then we talked about the deities, and now we talk about time. The year, Lord of creation, southern and northern, we worship, thinking sacrifice and pious. They win only the human world. So he's talking about here, and they return again. So he's talking about the north and southern roots. These are principles within within the Vedas, where the southern route is a material path and acts of selfish desires, whereas the northern route is the let's have a look here. Yeah, the southern route is the material path, acts of selfish desires, which is called Ista, which is ceremonial piety, or being religious or reverent. And Purta is to observe the Vedic ritual, then social service and public good. These things drive one towards the material. And the northern path is the one that takes you towards moksha, which is the release of rebirth, in other words. Okay, those who seek for the self by the northern route gain the sun. So again, it's talking about the sun being the giver of life, the illuminating force, the rays of the sun. You see the metaphorical way that all things are used. It's even in the Nag Hammadi, this is the same. In the Bible, I'm going to assume this is also the same, but we're going to come on to that next. I've not read it, so I will be coming on to that after I finish this. It says, by the northern route gain the sun, eternal and fearless. This is the elevation, moksha, the removal from physical birth. The final goal, they do not return, i.e. incarnation, stopping of rebirth. Conventional piety are distinguished from ethical and spiritual development. Through the sun they attain to Brahman. So this is a comment here. Conventional piety is that which keeps you in the material realm. It's distinguished from ethical and spiritual development, which takes you away from the material realm, in other words. Speak to him as the Father, seated in the higher half of the heavens. Him, so this is talking about the lokas, the various dimensions of frequency from lower to upper. So this is the upper half being that which goes closer to the divine. Lower half is that which goes towards the darker elements. The snake, the demonics, that kind of the serpent energy below. The dark half is matter. Bright half is life. So this is talking about material attachment, human form, humanity, the earth, the universe attached to this, and the bright life being that which is going towards a much, much higher, a much more elevated frequentially goal, which is the divine itself. Seers perform sacrifices in the half bright, which is basically at dusk or in the early morning before the sun is truly high in the sky. Day and night, the Lord of creation is matter. It joins in sexual intercourse. So this is talking about not physical intercourse, it's talking about the day and night are interlocked. It's talking about sexual control in our lives in terms of our ascetic practice. It's not saying that sexual practice should be devoided, although it talks about chastity. It's talking about control to help us move in our movement forward in our journeys. Okay, and question 2. It's talking about concerning the supporting and illuminating powers, life the greatest of them, life being the greatest of them. So this is talking about life, the greatest of the. So this is talking. I don't have a question in here where it actually asks the question. The question I think is about supporting and illuminating powers. Life, the greatest of them, said, "Do not cherish this delusion. I alone, dividing myself fivefold," we'll go into fivefold in a moment, "sustain and support this body." They believed him not. Through pride he seemed to go upward from the body. Others also went up. They settled down, others too. Speech, mind, sight and hearing being satisfied settled down. What does this mean? This is not talking about the sage raised from the ground and floated around. This is talking about him passing on his teachings and them raising in vibration through what they hear, what they are thinking through what they hear, what they are seeing in the world, and their foresight and spiritual sight, third eye, the crown chakra, and their speech, that being chants, that being ritual, that being prayer, and the silence being meditation. Once they understood this and they raised their vibration, they settled down into a plane of higher elevation. For me, that's what this means. So fivefold, what is that? Fivefold is the practice of breathing. So dividing myself fivefold. So he's talking about the sitting in meditative practice, breathing in the fivefold manner, therefore elevating one's senses, elevating oneself to a higher frequency of understanding dimensionally, frequentially, and therefore and then elevating and processing and understanding through speech, mind, sight, and hearing. And those breaths are prana vayu, which is the inward, so he's breathing in and breathing downward, and the equalizing breath, which is the one in between, and the ascending breath and the diffusive breath. That is when you're breathing out. So it could be also these are the 5 stages of breathing. So it continues. Fire burns and it is the sun. It's a bountiful God. He is the wind, earth, matter, and God, being and non-being. As spokes in the center of the wheel, everything is established in life. As the Lord of creatures, movest in the womb, that art born again. Thou art the chief bearer of offerings to the gods. Indra art thou valor, Rudra art thou protector. In the atmosphere as the sun, and the Lord of lights, thou pourest down rain. Creatures breathe, live in a state of bliss, thinking thou art ever pure. One seer, the eater, the real Lord of all, the eater of spiritual food. We are the givers of what is to be eaten, i.e. teachings, all pervading, that form of thine which is well established in the speech, ear, eye, do not get away. So this is basically referring to the sun again as being the bountiful illuminating one. He's talking about the other elements being part of the deific realm, and the source being and non-being, and being established They pull out obviously deities, Indra, Rudra, and so forth. But what he's saying here is the teachings. Once the teachings are established within the speech, the ear, the eye, how we receive information and repeat it, they are established within us, therefore they do not get away. In other words, we elevate, they integrate within us, and we move forward in our journey. This is illuminating powers, life the greatest of them. Okay, question 3. So it says here, the life of a person. And so question. So this is where the question is stated. In the previous question, it wasn't stated clearly. Sir, when is life born? How does it come into this body? How does it distribute itself and then depart? What support? What is the support? What is external? How does it support what is external? Sorry, and what relates to the self? And the seer goes on to answer. You are asking questions which are highly transcendental, i.e., move on. The knowledge of this retains and moves on beyond this life within us. You are most devoted to Brahman. I will tell you. Life is born of the self, i.e. the spirit. Person there is a shadow. It's just talking about the spirit within. It's a shadow of ourselves. Within it is a shadow, a reflection that we don't see, a shadow that sometimes we recognize, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we allow, sometimes we don't. And this is what they call the shadow, the silent thing inside. It's the shadow that follows us. Connect with the self into this body by the activity of the mind. Well, I would say it's the trinity of the spirit, heart, and mind. The mind is a processor to help us understand that which, when we're in silent, that comes through our spirit and our heart. You superintend such and such villages. Out breath in the organs of excretion and generation. Life breath are such as in the eye, mouth, ear, nose. Middle is the equalizing breath. From this arise the 7 flames. In the heart is this self. So let's just look at the first bit where it says talk about villages. This is talking about you superintend such and such villages. And this is the fruitless task or endeavor. It's talking about wasting one's time in this and that activity within the material and human world in villages, which is where, remember, at the time everything was villages, and that was a fruitless task. And we focus on the organs and also excretion and generation, i.e. just multiplying and excreting. And it says life breath are such as in the eye, the ear, the mouth and nose. Middle is the equalizing breath. From this arise the 7 flames. In the heart is this self. So he's talking about the spirit is near the heart. The up breath leads in consequence to good work and to the good world, and evil to the evil world, so we make a choice. Both to the world of men. That's true. Whatever one's thinking, therewith one enters into life. This is an interesting statement. What it's basically saying is, where we left last, we will enter into life that we've come back into with the expansion of the past. But where we are thinking now will also project into our life going forward. Remember, we carve out our futures way ahead of our experiencing them, because our actions, word, thoughts and events transcend forward, and intentions transcend forward, creating timelines of possible experience. And this is what manifests before us. So remember to have cognizance and be aware, be mindful of those, of action, words, thoughts and intentions. Okay, when we therewith one enters into life, his combined with fire along with the self leads to whatever world has been fashioned in thought. The wise one who knows life thus becomes immortal. The birth, entrance, abode, relation to self in life. So he goes, anyone who knows the birth of life, its entrance into the body, how to abide, how it abides, there is there in its 5-fold division and knows its relation to the inner spot, enjoys eternal life. This is effectively talking about meditative enlightenment through meditation, breathing prana, and the inner spot enjoys eternal life in relation to the inner spot. So the inner spirit is eternal life, but through our entrance into our true self, the heart and mind and the spirit, we can enjoy the knowing that comes with eternal life and exhibit it and emit it into our daily existence. The 7 flames, this is fire. These are the deities of fire. Remember, fires are how things are invoked and manifested, not only just in the physical plane, but also in our own personal lives. It's the fire that we have, and these are the deities. I won't go into trying to pronounce them, but those are the 7 sub-deities. Agni is being the primary. These are the sub-deities, the demi-deities of fire, of Agni rather. Okay, question 4. Concerning sleep and the ultimate basis of things. Sir, what are they that sleep in this person? It's asking what's asleep inside. That keep awake in him, the God that sees the dreams. And he goes on to say, rays of the setting sun, again the sun, the illumination, become one in this circle of light, and as they spread forth when he arises again and again, all this became one in the supreme God, the mind. That state the person hears not, sees not, smells not, tastes not. They say he sleeps. Four of life remain awake in this city. The fire of life remain awake in this city. Householders, fire is the out-breath. Southern sacrificial fire is the diffused breath. The in-breath or the offering is the offering oblation fire. Equalizing breath equalizes the 2 oblations, in-breathing and out-breathing. So there's in and out, and there's 3 other phases in between. Fruit of sacrifice is the up-breath to Brahman. So life is conceived as is conceived as a sacrifice. Life breaths are symbolically identified with the fires used in Vedic sacrifice. So this is true. Within Vedic rituals, there's a lot of fire. As I mentioned this before, there's fire in many, many things, and you go around giving offerings and oblations into the fire. One meditates and breathes in and out, but has different states of breath in between. Therefore, there's 5 different breaths. And this is effectively saying they say he sleeps. Fire of life remain awake in the city. What is that city? That is your eternal spirit. That is your divine spirit. This is the city of where the fire of manifestation is forever, is ever lit, and it's fully eternal. And it doesn't hear, it doesn't see, it doesn't smell, it just is. Okay, dreamless sleep. When overcome with light, the God, which is the mind, sees no dreams. Body arises this happiness. Everything here resort to the Supreme Self and find their rest. He is a seer, toucher and hearer, smeller, taster, perceiver, knower, doer, thinking person. And I'll put in comments, the subject self is established in the spirit, which transcends all duality, even the distinction of subject and object. So the self does transcend all duality. Duality is an expression of our physical world, and we manifest it and create it through our physical actions, words, thoughts, and intentions, directed through mind and ego and body-related identification. So this says the God mind sees no dreams. This is the spirit. Remember, the spirit and the heart are the primary forces. The mind is a processor, and how we understand and become more expanded through our intellectual knowing, and therefore it becomes closer and closer integrated into that trinity. But the God is not the mind, in case that was misunderstood. Who knows the shadowless, bodiless, colourless, pure, undecaying, will establish the self of the nature of intelligence. So it's saying supreme knowing and intelligence is the shadowless, bodiless, or colourless, pure, undecaying divine spirit. Everything points to that. If you remember the Vedas, just as we go forward, and if you've watched the others prior to this, the single message in all of it is to achieve moksha, to achieve removes yourself from the cycle of rebirth and stop rebirth altogether, therefore expanding. You can call this lessons, you can call it whatever you want. It's basically changing. We expand through changing and transforming our established tendencies and repeating paradigms of behavior which are attaching us to this, and also our desires that we do not let go of. The attachment is keeping us here and cycling us here through our own will. It's presenting because we haven't released ourselves from this this ring, which I think is actually not just over an energetic spiritual ring, but it's over the entire universe. We're supposed to evolve beyond the theatre of the universe. Okay, question 5. Sir, what world does he who among men meditates on the syllable Om until the end of his life win? What does he win by that? And that which is the second sound. Excuse me. Why is it going funny today? That which is the sound Om. So the seer goes on to say, that which is the sound Om is the higher and the lower Brahman. It is all things. In other words, it's the symbol and the sound of the universe, the sound of the divine cascading through the universe with the sound of Om. This is what it represents, and it represents to me. The wise man reach one or the other, the higher or the lower Brahman. If he meditates on one element, so this is talking about Om. He reach one or the other. It depends how you focus on the word Om and meditate. So if he meditates on one element, which is the A, he is enlightened even by that comes quickly to the earth after death. So in other words, you get some enlightenment. You mentioned just if you just say the A, but you return to earth. There's no release from moksha and to the world of men. He meditates on this as of two elements, which is a U. He attains mind. Now this is intellectual, spiritual, awakened thought. By the Yajus formula, the world of the moon, and experiences greatness, he returns hither again, so he still returns to incarnative life. Meditates on the highest person, the full three elements, Om, becomes one with the light, the sun, and by the same which are chants, to the world of Brahman, sees the person that dwells in the body. So the Vedas are all about formula, ritual, practice, chanting, prayer. And those are the Vedas, and those are the practices that you would do, also pronouncing Om in meditative practice. And then this is how it is said that one evolves beyond the earth and the universal plane and sees the person that dwells in the body. In other words, we fully connect with our divine spirit sufficiently enough to remove ourselves from rebirth, moksha. And the comment here is, world of Brahman is the world of Hiranyagarbha. So Hiranyagarbha is the deity of the universe, the force behind the universe, which is really just an abstraction of Brahma and the divine grace anyway. Brahma being the absolute, which is a representation of the divine grace, and Brahma consciousness being the what we're trying to achieve and sits within us. He is the internal self of all beings in the subtle form and in him. Okay, with the this is talking about the various stages of verses. Remember, the Vedas contain various things, verses, formulas, chants, and so forth. And this is talking about how one moves through using those things into different stages of expansion. So it talks about with the Rig Veda verses, one attains this world. In other words, the material matter realm. With the formulas in the Yajus Veda, we start to go inward into the inner space, and we start to have chants, and which the seers recognize. By the mere sound Om, our support. By the mere sound Om, it's our support. It gives us tranquility, unaging, immortal, and makes us fearless. And Surya sages is a sage. It's a Surya sage suggests the supreme is beyond the three worlds: this, inner space, and inner. That's right. But it's in the inner. It is in the inner space, and it is in this world. So it's in all things. It's not external to us. These teachings tend to think a lot about the divine being external to us. It's actually internal to us. It's external to us. It's in the middle to us, because it's in all things. But when we're receiving the divine, we're receiving it through our internal self and expressing it outward. because that explosion projects outward, we think it's coming from an external space, but it's actually being projected outwardly from within, with a conjunction with the heart space in which the mind starts to conceive it and is sent thought. Okay, is this not moving forward? Okay, question 6, which is the final one. I hope you can actually see this image. You might have to open your phone in a little bit, or pause it and have a look at this image. But question 6 is concerning the person of the 16 points. We'll come to those 16 points in a moment. Sir, Hiranyanubla is the prince of the Kosola kingdom, approached me and asked. So this is one of the disciples saying this. Do you know the person with 16 parts? And the disciple says, I know him not. If I had known him, why should I not tell you about it? To his roots he withers, who speaks untruth. Not proper for me to speak untruth. And then this Hiranyanablha left. He departed. The 16 parts are actually part of a yoga system, which is what they're talking about here. And the other one says, he created life, faith, ether, air, light, water, earth, sense, organ, mind, food, vitality, vigor. The 16 parts tending towards the person, spirit, the dweller, on reaching this person. So what is this? This is, now if you look at here, look at 16 parts, the skin, hands, foot, speech, excretory organ, regenerative organ, sound, ether, touch, air, form, fire, flavor, water, smell, and earth. See, all of these things are the way in which, from the Vedic perspective, we understand creation. We understand Hiranyagarbha. We understand the absolute. We understand the divine grace. Because for them, all these things are elements, deities, or expressions through which we absorb and understand our divine journey. So remember, I've mentioned this many times, the Vedas use everything as a metaphor or an abstract or a principle in which knowing is received. And as you can see, from earth all the way up to the skin, this is going in through earth elements, environmental elements, things within the body, the skin, and it goes on. The 17 is the tongue, the nose, the ear, the eye. You've got 20 parts, but it goes on. And this is the world of cognition. Manas is the world, is the mind itself. Indra is the things that create action. So cognition is where we receive things to help our cognition, which is referred to and extracted in the mind, which is the manas. So we receive things through the ear, the eye, we smell, we speak, or we tongue, we taste, and our skin, and all these other elements. We perform actions through our hands, foot, we speak, we excrete, and we regenerate, i.e. offspring. And then it goes up the tree. So this is the yogic system that I was mentioning here. Okay, so that is the end of that Upanisad. It's fairly short, and I hope you enjoyed it. Remember, the second coming is you. This is the Vedas, and everything's asking you to become that which we seek externally is actually within you. But to do that, you have to become it. Remember, we're not here to be perfect. We are going to have faults. We are going to be strayed. But we just need to evolve sufficiently enough, and you'll know when this occurs. You'll be drawn to people, places, synchronicities, events, and times. In your spiritual journey, if you remain open to the divine grace guiding your hand forward, offer your hand out to the divine always, and it will guide you. The divine will guide you through your own, the ascended spirits that surround us, and they'll guide you on this journey. But you must become that. But don't try to be perfect, and don't profess that you know all things. Don't let the ego take over. It's a private journey, remember, and the divine is personal to us, each. And as Mahanji says, true spirituality is transformative spirituality, that which transforms us, you. When we follow rituals, gurus, we follow various activities, but unless transformation, becoming, happens, we're just performing activity to make us feel good, self-righteous, and virtuous. Okay, so let's just get back to that. I want to say thank you for listening to this and for this very short Upanisad. I hope you enjoyed it, and look forward to the next one coming to you soon. And I'll say God bless to you all, and much love, and thank you again. Thank you.